Welcome to Black Coffee, The Refill. Today I'm joined by my special guest, Senior Advisor to Joe Biden, Symone Sanders. Symone, good to see you.
Hey, Mark, good to be seen.
You've been running around this country.
Just a little bit, you know, going back to South Carolina this weekend. Was in Miami last week, Chicago with the Rainbow Push Coalition Friday. So we're just all over America.
So a lot of people know that you are a senior advisor, but people say, what exactly does a senior advisor do?
Well, it depends on what day it is. But I'm one of, like, I think the vice president, we have three senior advisors officially, like, for the campaign. And my portfolio is really, I support the political team and I support the communications team. And I also work on our debate prep team. And so I chase delegates, I chase endorsements, I help write talking points, I help work on our comm strategy. I'm sure I know people have seen me on television because they're in my mentions, giving me all their opinions and all under my Instagram page. And so I also serve as a spokesperson. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of different things. So any given day I could be in the office on calls all day, or I could be out there traveling with the vice president. Or I could be doing fun stuff like coming here and talking to you.
Exactly. How difficult is it for you, I guess as a black woman, to be in that position? I'm sure you're a lightning rod for a lot of stuff.
For a lot of different things. You know, like, this is my second time on the presidential campaign trail, and I've only ever done campaigns. Like, since I was in college, I've always worked campaigns, and if I wasn't working a campaign, I was working like a mini campaign, like an issue-based advocacy organization, or working with a PAC, doing voting rights stuff, which is what I did in between the last presidential cycle and this cycle. And so I've just adopted to, like, you know, some things just come with the territory. But it's a lot, but it's also fun. Like, I love politics. I believe we need to save the republic. And I am just happy that there are so many candidates this go round in this particular primary, this Democratic primary. We have a lot of great candidates, but a lot of great staff on the other campaigns. And so I also enjoy getting to see my friends on the campaign trail.
Oh, that's pretty neat. Now you said this is your second time on the presidential campaign trail.
Yes, my second time.
I think when I met you, you were working with Bernie Sanders.
Yes, another senator. Yes.
Yes, you've heard of him. Yes.
Yes, I've heard of him. Yes. No relation.
Yes. How did you make the decision to work with Vice President Biden this time as opposed to Senator Sanders?
Yeah, so, you know, I left the Sanders campaign in June of 2016 after all the nominating contests were done. Yeah. Then I went and I worked convention, and then I think most people have seen me. I was a CNN political commentator for a while, and I worked on voting rights with a PAC called Priorities USA, and did some digital-based work there, and I was their senior advisor. And as I was sitting on television one random Thursday, I think I was on Jake Tapper's show, and we were getting ready to go on, and they gave us the topics, and we were discussing 2020, and I just realized that I didn't want to spend this cycle talking about what other people were doing on the campaign trail. I wanted to go do it. And so I started having different conversations, and I was like, do I really want to go on the campaign trail? Because I like going to brunch, I like to drive my car, I like to sleep in on Tuesdays. But I thought this was just really important. And so I sat down with Vice President Biden a number of times, and we just clicked. We have a good rapport. And I felt that his campaign was a place where I could be effective. There's just a couple things that are important to me in my career, because I don't think people understand, like, this is literally what I do for a career. Some people, they just dip their toe in politics and they dip back out.
Right.
And then,
it's your job, it's your life.
This is my life. This is literally how I pay some of my bills. Like, I have a consulting company, but politics is what I do. I'm passionate about it, but, like, this is my career. So the way people take it very serious about how they do finance and how they do education, and this is how I take it about politics. This is not a game for me. So I also had to make a career decision. And where can I be most effective? Where will I have a voice? Where will I have access? You know, where will I be heard? But also, where will I not have to fight with the people I work with every day? And so, you know, this is the place where I'm at. And so I'm having a good time. You know, some days are tougher than others.
But
I'm having a good time, Mark.
We're going to talk about some of them tough days.
I'm having a good time.
I'm going to ask you about some tough days. But you talked about this. I mean, one of the criticisms of the Sanders campaign was that he was somewhat tone deaf to issues of race, issues of gender, in particular black women. Was that something you experienced? I mean, because you talked about going to a place where you could be heard.
I mean, I just think at this point in my career in general, whether I was in a boardroom or whether I'm on the campaign trail, I want to go to a place, an organization, a team where there are not 8 degrees of separation between me and the principal or me and the CEO. And that is what was important to me this time around if I was saying I wanted to, you know, give up my brunch and my sleeping in on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
I wanted to go someplace where my voice would be heard, but I would also have access, and I would have a good team. And we have a great team. I work very closely with the communications team and the political team, and I get to travel and work with the teams in the States. And we've just got some really talented people that are all in on Team Joe to help get Donald Trump out of here.
What's it like? You say you have more access to the principal. We're gonna talk about getting Donald Trump out of here too. What's Vice President Biden like?
Vice President Biden is hilarious. Okay, he's hilarious. I think the memes about Uncle Joe are absolutely true. Like, he's a fun-loving guy, but he's also somebody that is really thorough. And so he's all about making sure he's well read on an issue. He wants all the background information. He's not somebody that you hand a briefing book to and he never reads it. He reads a briefing book.
I know some of them.
You know some of those folks.
Yes.
Okay, that's not Joe Biden. He reads it. He has the briefing book. He reads it, and he comes back with questions and follow up from page 52 to check if you know what's on page 52. So it's just a really enjoyable experience. One of the things that sold me on Joe Biden, if you will, that really made me say, this is where I really want to be. The first time I sat down with him, we had a conversation about everything, and I asked him any question you could think of. I asked him the question, and he answered all my questions. I'm not going to get into the specifics of what we talked about, but one of the things he did talk about is how when he was 29 years old, that was the first time he ran for Senate against an incumbent and won. I'm 29 years old right now. I turned 30 at the end of this year. And just in the course of our conversation, it struck me that he knew what it was like to be a young person at one point in time that wanted to contribute, that wanted to have their voice heard, that didn't like what they saw in the system and wanted to change it. And I identified with him on that. And he's funny, he's cool, but he's also about his business. We have a good time on the campaign trail, and he's just a fun-loving guy. We had a meeting the other day in D.C., and we were meeting at a place on the Hill, and some of the staff in the building on the Hill, we were waiting around for the folks that were coming to meet with us, and the woman there mentioned that her niece really loved Joe Biden. And he was like, let's call her up right now. So she calls her, and he gets on the phone, he was like, hey, so-and-so, this is Joe Biden. Yeah, this is Vice President Biden. And she's like, and the girl, I'm here screaming on the other side.
I can imagine.
She's like, oh my God, oh, are you, shut up. I'm like, oop, man, girl, you can't tell the Vice President, shut up. But she was so excited. He talked to her for about 10 minutes, and then she lives in San Francisco. And he said, I'll be out in San Francisco in the next week or two, and you're happy to come to any of our events as my special guest. And she came and was in San Francisco with us this weekend at one of the events that the Vice President did. So that's the kind of person Joe Biden is, and that's why I'm so happy to work for him.
You think Donald Trump would do that?
Absolutely not.
Your president would never.
Your president would never. Reason number 556, I'm happy to work for Joe Biden.
You said that we're saving the republic. What are we saving it from?
Have you seen the news lately? Look, I think Donald Trump is an existential threat to our current way of life. I think there are things that have happened in this administration that will literally take a generation just to untangle. So
what kind of stuff?
Criminal justice, what's happening in the criminal justice system. The First Step Act was a nice first step, but I'd like to remind you that the current president of the United States has not allocated one penny in his budget to funding the First Step Act that he talked about was so great criminal justice reform that he passed. There are the reinstatement of harsher sentences and mandatory minimums from the Department of Justice. Before the current Attorney General, William Barr, got there, Jeff Sessions did a lot of nefarious things. You have a Department of Education that's literally not advocating on behalf of teachers, let alone students. So those are just two things. I mean, I could go on, Mark. Healthcare. The Trump administration is in court right now arguing against the Affordable Care Act, arguing against saying that basically healthcare is not a right. And so in the same breath where Donald Trump says, I will protect your healthcare, Medicaid and Medicare isn't going anywhere, his attorneys are in court saying that Americans across the country don't need health care. They're in court arguing, trying to get the Affordable Care Act thrown out. And I believe health care is a right. I know Vice President Biden believes health care is a right. Frankly, I believe all the Democrats in this race believe health care is a right. And so these are things that we cannot let go unchecked. Vice President Biden often talks about his parents used to tell him one of the most egregious things that someone can do is abuse power. And he told me once that he authored the Violence Against Women Act, Vice President Biden did, because domestic violence is actually an abuse of power. It is a grotesque abuse of power. And what he sees from this White House, from the White House, the administration on down to the cabinet officials, is a grotesque abuse of power. And you cannot let an abuse of power go unchecked. And he said that's why he decided to run for president in 2020.
Wow, I got a bunch more questions for you after the break, but one more question for you. President Carter said that Donald Trump is an illegitimate president based on, I guess, Russian meddling, Russian influence, et cetera. Would you agree with that position?
Look, I think President Carter, he looked at the facts and he made his own decision. I don't necessarily feel the way President Carter feels, but I think it's very, very jarring, Mark, that in 2020 we have a living president, a former president of the United States of America, who knows the gravity of that job, who understands how serious it is, who knows the power that his words carry. And the fact that President Carter felt the need to say that, felt it was important to tell that to not just the people of America, but the world, I think is something we ought to listen to.
That is something we got to listen to. I got some more questions for you on the other side, so we're going to stay right here. Stay with us. Black Coffee to Refill comes right back.